My family treated me like I was invisible for years, like a shadow that no one ever noticed in their bright, perfect world. It hurt deep inside, but I learned to live with it, turning that pain into something powerful. Then, at that intense and unforgettable Thanksgiving dinner, I finally dropped the bomb about my $180 million business empire. The room went dead silent for a moment, like time had stopped. My sister's face twisted in total shock, her mouth hanging open as if she'd seen a ghost come to life. And my dad? He just sat there like a frozen statue, his fork halfway to his mouth, his eyes full of quiet regret that he couldn't hide anymore. It was the kind of moment that changes everything, and looking back, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I learned how to disappear, to blend into the background and not make waves, when I was just 9 years old. That's the year my sister Victoria turned 18, and our parents pulled off this huge surprise for her. They had a fancy Porsche delivered right to our driveway, wrapped up in a massive red bow that sparkled under the morning sun. I remember pressing my face against the cold glass of my bedroom window, watching the whole scene unfold like a movie I wasn't part of. Victoria screamed with pure joy, jumping up and down like she'd won the lottery, her long hair flying everywhere as she threw her arms around Mom and Dad. The neighbors heard the commotion and came rushing over, clapping and congratulating our parents on raising such an amazing, talented daughter. They all stood there chatting and laughing, the car gleaming like a trophy. But no one looked up at my window. No one saw me standing there in my old, faded sweater that used to be Victoria's and my cheap pants from the thrift store down the street. I felt so small, like I didn't even exist in that happy picture. Victoria had always been the star of our family, the one who lit up every room she walked into. She's 7 years older than me, and she came along when our parents were still young, full of energy and big dreams for their first child. They poured everything into her, believing they could shape her into someone perfect, smart, beautiful, successful. But by the time I arrived, things were different. I think I was more of an accident than a planned addition to the family. Their excitement had faded, like a fire that had burned too bright and now was just embers. My baby books, those cute little albums where parents write down milestones and paste in photos, stayed mostly empty. They filled in a few pages at first, but after my first birthday, it all stopped. No more updates, no more memories captured. It was like I stopped mattering as much. Our parents owned a successful real estate business in Massachusetts, selling houses to families who wanted the American dream. We weren't mega rich like movie stars, but we had a nice house, and there was always enough money, for Victoria, at least. She got all the best things without even asking. She went to this elite private school called Hawthorne Prep, where the tuition cost more per year than most people pay for a new car. The school had shiny classrooms, the latest computers, and teachers who treated the kids like future presidents. Meanwhile, I was stuck at Lincoln Public High, the local school just a few blocks from home. It was old and falling apart. The roof leaked during rainstorms, turning the hallways into puddles, and our textbooks were ancient, with copyright dates from the 1990s. Pages were torn, and some even had notes from kids who graduated before I was born. One day, I got brave and asked Mom why Victoria got to go to the fancy school and I didn't. She gave me this look, like I was asking something silly, like why the sky is blue. Victoria needs more challenges, honey, she's so talented and gifted. You're doing just okay where you are. It's fine for you. That word, okay, stuck in my mind like a thorn. It hurt because it meant I wasn't special. Victoria was the genius, the one destined for big things, like becoming a CEO or a famous artist. I was just average, nothing to get excited about. The unfairness showed up in little ways too, like birthdays. For Victoria's 17th birthday, our parents whisked her away on a dream trip to Rome. They flew first class, stayed in fancy hotels, and she came back with stories about seeing the Colosseum and eating gelato by the fountains. She had photos of herself posing in front of ancient ruins, looking like a model. For my birthday that same year, I got a cheap cake from the grocery store, the kind with too much frosting and a plastic "Happy Birthday" topper. It cost maybe $25, and we ate it quickly after dinner, like it was no big deal. Another time, my graphing calculator broke right before a big math test in school. It was old anyway, but I needed it badly. I didn't even bother asking my parents for a new one. I knew they'd say no or tell me to make do. So, I saved up my allowance and bought a used one from a pawn shop. It worked okay, but it made me feel like I had to handle everything on my own. At first, I didn't really get mad about all this unfair treatment. I was too young to fully understand what was going on. I just thought that's how families worked. Some kids are the favorites because they're better or more deserving. Maybe Victoria really was smarter and prettier, and that's why she got the good stuff. I started believing that about myself, that I wasn't worth as much. But something good came out of it too. Being ignored made me tough and creative in ways Victoria never had to be. I developed this thing called resourcefulness, figuring out how to get what I needed without help. While Victoria was off taking expensive lessons in piano and Italian, practicing scales and learning fancy words, I was at the public library after school. I'd check out books on computers and coding, sitting in a quiet corner with a free online course on an old library computer. My fingers would fly across the keyboard, learning how to make simple programs that did cool things, like games or calculators. It felt like magic, creating something from nothing. Her summers were spent at these luxurious camps in the Hamptons, where she'd swim in crystal-clear pools, go horseback riding, and make friends with rich kids from all over. Mine. I worked long hours at a small corner store, stocking shelves with candy and chips, ringing up customers, and saving every single penny I earned. I kept a little jar under my bed, watching it fill up slowly, dreaming of what I could do with it someday. When it came time for college, Victoria was choosing between top schools like she was picking out shoes. I applied to a state university, crossing my fingers for scholarships. I got in with a full ride based on my grades. It was the first time I felt like I'd won something big on my own. My parents celebrated my acceptance by taking me to a basic chain restaurant, like Olive Garden or something similar. We had pasta and breadsticks, and they said, "Good job," a couple times, but it felt flat. But when Victoria got into Yale, oh man, they threw this massive party in our backyard. There were 100 guests, fancy catered food like shrimp cocktails and mini sandwiches, and even a champagne toast where Dad gave a speech about how proud he was. Everyone clapped and cheered. I remember eating just a little bit, a couple of those tiny sandwiches, and then slipping away early, walking back to my room alone. No one even noticed I was gone. The party kept going without a hitch. College became my escape, my chance to build a new life away from the shadows. I threw myself into it, double majoring in software engineering and physics because I loved how they combined logic and creativity. To pay for extras like books or food, I worked 3 part-time jobs, tutoring kids in math, waitressing at a diner, and even doing data entry for a small office. In my free time, which wasn't much, I'd practice coding, building little projects that got better and better. I avoided going home for holidays as much as possible. I'd make up excuses, like, I have an internship or exams are coming up, which were partly true. But the real reason? I couldn't stand watching Victoria come home to cheers and hugs, while I'd get a quick, "Oh, you're here too," like an afterthought. It made my stomach twist every time. In my second year of college, everything started to shift in a huge way. I began freelancing on the side, using my coding skills to make websites and apps for small businesses who couldn't afford big companies. One client, a local warehouse owner, kept complaining about how their system for tracking inventory was a mess. They were losing thousands of dollars every month because stuff got lost or overordered. Over winter break, while everyone else was relaxing, I locked myself in my dorm room and built a custom solution for them. It was brutal work. Long nights staring at my screen, debugging errors, fueled by cheap coffee and instant noodles. My eyes would burn, and my back ached from hunching over, but when it finally worked, it was like a rush of victory. They tested it, loved it, and paid me $8,000, the most money I'd ever held in my hands. It felt like real power. But even better, they told their business friends about me. Word spread fast, and within a few months, I had a dozen more companies knocking on my door, wanting similar fixes. I made a tough choice. I cut back on my classes to part-time so I could focus on this growing side hustle. School was important, but this felt like my future. I barely slept, maybe 4 or 5 hours a night, surviving on ramen and energy drinks, coding until my fingers went numb and my code started blurring on the screen. My program kept evolving, getting smarter and more powerful. I named it Chainmaster. A full platform that used AI to manage supply chains, predicting problems like delays or shortages before they happened. It integrated with existing systems and gave real-time updates. At just 20 years old, I was running a real tech company from my tiny dorm room, with a bed that doubled as my desk chair and posters of code heroes on the walls. By 21, I graduated with my degree, walking across that stage feeling like I'd conquered a mountain. Victoria had finished Yale the year before and landed a plush job at a top ad agency in New York City. Our parents helped her buy a fancy apartment with views of the skyline, and they bragged about her constantly, showing off photos of her office like it was a museum piece. They knew I was into computers, but they never asked for details. Whenever I'd try to explain what Chainmaster did, how it saved companies money and made things efficient, Dad would nod politely and then say something like, "That's nice. Hey, did you hear about Victoria's big presentation last week?" It stung every time, so eventually, I just stopped trying to share. But there was one time that almost broke me completely. It was Easter when I was 22, and I decided to go home, buzzing with excitement. I just signed a massive $500,000 contract that would let me hire more people and expand. It was a game changer. Victoria was there, flashing her new engagement ring from some guy named Marcus, a banker who our parents adored. Spoiler, he cheated on her 8 months later, and the whole thing fell apart. She was the center of attention, as usual, showing off the diamond to everyone. At dinner, surrounded by the smell of ham and potatoes, I waited for a quiet moment and said, "Hey, I have some awesome news too." Mom looked at me with mild interest. "Oh. Did you meet a nice boy, sweetie?" I shook my head. "No, it's about work. I just closed a huge deal." Dad mumbled, "That's great," without even looking up from his phone. Then he turned to Victoria, "We should plan your engagement party, a big tent in the backyard, maybe fireworks." Victoria squealed, and just like that, my moment was gone. I excused myself, ran upstairs to my old bedroom, which they'd turned into a storage space for Victoria's extra clothes and gifts, and sat on the floor, surrounded by her stuff. Tears stung my eyes as I called my business partner, Sophia, a smart coder I'd met online who believed in me from the start. "They don't care at all," I sobbed. She listened patiently and then said firmly, "Then stop wasting your energy on them, Elena. Build your empire. Let your success do the talking for you." Her words hit me like a wake-up call, changing everything. I'd been chasing their approval like a puppy begging for treats, but no more. From that day, I channeled all my hurt, every ignored birthday, every dismissive comment, into fuel for Chainmaster. I worked harder than ever, turning pain into progress. At 22, right after that Easter disaster, I landed my first major contract with a big logistics company. They paid $400,000 to use Chainmaster across their operations, and I used it to hire my first real employees, 2 brilliant developers who shared my vision. We worked out of a tiny rented office, brainstorming late into the night over pizza. By 23, more clients came pouring in, from national retailers to shipping giants. Revenue hit $10 million that year, and my team grew to 60 people, all passionate about what we were creating. I remember the thrill of our first company meeting, seeing everyone excited about the future I'd built. At 24, venture capital firms started noticing us. They offered $25 million for a chunk of the company, but I negotiated hard, getting $15 million for just 15%. My lawyers thought I was crazy for pushing back, but I knew Chainmaster's true value. It wasn't just code, it was a revolution in how businesses ran. I could have gone home that Christmas and spilled everything, showing up with proof of my success to finally make them see me. But something held me back, maybe pride, or the memory of all those years being second best. I wanted to go even further, to build something so massive that when they found out, it would be undeniable. So, I kept quiet, living simply in a small apartment in Seattle, driving my old rusty car, and pouring everything back into the business. By 25, Chainmaster exploded onto the international scene. We signed deals in Europe, Asia, and Australia, with revenue soaring to $40 million. I finally treated myself a little. Moved to a nicer but still modest loft with a view of the city lights, and bought a Tesla to replace my old beater. But I didn't flaunt it, I stayed grounded, remembering where I came from. At 26, the big tech companies came knocking with buyout offers. The first was $150 million from a Silicon Valley giant, but they wanted to tear apart Chainmaster and mix it into their own stuff. No way, I rejected it fast. The second was $220 million from a European company, but their plan included moving me overseas and laying off my team. My board of advisors yelled at me in meetings, saying I was throwing away life-changing money. "You're insane," one investor shouted. But I stood firm, this isn't just about cash. It's about the people and the vision we've built together. Then, I met Alexandra Voss, the tough, self-made CEO of Technova Solutions. She was like me, started from nothing and built an empire. We met in a cozy Seattle coffee shop, the smell of fresh brews filling the air, and she pitched a deal that respected everything I'd created. "I don't want to swallow Chainmaster," she said, stirring her latte. "I want to make it bigger. You stay as CEO, your team stays intact, and we give you the tools to go global." It sounded perfect. Negotiations dragged on for months, lawyers arguing over every detail, late-night calls, stacks of papers. I fought tooth and nail for my employees, securing big bonuses and shares for them. When we finally shook on $350 million, Alexandra grinned and said, "You drive a hard bargain." I smiled back, "I've spent my life being undervalued. Not anymore." After taxes, fees, and sharing with my team, I walked away with $180 million personally. At 26, I had more money than I ever dreamed, but my family still thought I was just scraping by with computer stuff. Meanwhile, Victoria had moved on from her broken engagement and got engaged again, this time to Blake, a hotshot venture capitalist who made our parents beam with pride. Dad even suggested once that I apply for a basic job at his real estate office, saying they needed someone good with computers for data entry. Mom would ask in her casual way if I was still playing around with that coding hobby, like it was something I'd outgrow, like playing with dolls. I went to their engagement party out of habit, handed over a $500 gift card from their registry, smiled for a few photos, and slipped out before the toasts. No one texted to ask where I'd gone. The deal closed in September, and by October, I was in my new role at Technova, with a 7-year contract that gave me freedom and power. I started giving back in secret ways that felt right. I donated anonymously to my old public school, funding a full tech lab with new computers, software, and even coding classes for kids like I used to be. I set up scholarships for students from tough backgrounds, helping them get to college without the struggles I faced. And for myself, I splurged on my first real luxury, a stunning mansion overlooking Puget Sound, bought for $6 million in cash. It had huge windows, a home office with the latest tech, and a peaceful garden where I could think. Waking up to the water views every morning reminded me of how far I'd come. Thanksgiving rolled around, and for the first time in years, I felt ready to go home, not because I wanted to fix things or beg for love, but to test myself. I'd been seeing a therapist, Dr. Leung, for 2 years, unpacking all the emotional baggage from growing up invisible. In our sessions, surrounded by her calm office with plants and soft chairs, she'd ask tough questions. Why go back now? What do you hope to gain? I'd think hard and say, I want to see if their opinions still hurt me. If not, then I'm truly free. She nodded wisely. Remember, freedom doesn't come from their approval. You've already proven everything to yourself. Her words gave me strength as I drove to Massachusetts, the fall leaves swirling like confetti, music blasting in my Tesla. I packed lightly, but included a folder with the acquisition papers, not to show off, but as a personal reminder of my wins. The house looked exactly the same when I arrived, big lawn perfectly mowed, fancy cars in the driveway, including Victoria's upgraded Aston Martin. Mom answered the door with a quick hug that felt more like habit than warmth. You made it. Come in, Victoria and Blake are in the living room. Victoria glanced up from the couch, where she was scrolling her phone, Blake next to her looking every bit the rich guy in his tailored suit and expensive watch. She was stunning as always. Tall, with perfect hair and makeup that made her look like she stepped out of a magazine. Hey, Elle, she said without much energy, her eyes going right back to her screen. Been a while. I asked about the wedding planning, and she ranted about how stressful it was, venues booking up, Mom helping out. Dad came in from his study, glasses on, and asked about my job in that distracted way. Still with those computers? Victoria snickered, saying my perks were probably nothing special. I could have bragged about my amazing package at Technova, full health coverage, unlimited vacation, stock options worth millions, and a $900,000 base salary plus bonuses. But I just said, it's fine, and let it go. Thanksgiving Day was the usual chaos. Mom was up at dawn, chopping and stirring in the kitchen, the smells of turkey and pies filling the house. She refused help but complained non-stop about how tired she was. Victoria bossed Blake around like he was her assistant, making him rearrange furniture and set the table just so. I pitched in quietly, washing dishes or peeling veggies, trying to stay out of the spotlight. Aunt Beatrice arrived around noon with Uncle Harold and their kids, Ethan and Mia. Teenagers who acted like the world owed them everything, always on their phones demanding stuff. Beatrice air-kissed me dramatically. Elena, still single? Don't worry, the right guy will come. Try those dating apps. I said I wasn't looking, but she waved it off. Then she turned to Victoria for all the wedding gossip. Dinner was called at 4 p.m. now, since everyone was running late. We squeezed around the big dining table, with Mom and Dad at the ends, Victoria and Blake on one side with Beatrice's family, and me stuck between Ethan and Uncle Harold. Dad said a quick grace, and we passed around the food, juicy turkey, creamy mashed potatoes, green beans, and that canned cranberry sauce that jiggles but no one really eats. Conversation started, and as always, it zeroed in on Victoria. Dad asked Blake about his recent promotion, and Blake smiled modestly. Yes, partner now. It's a big step up. Dad beamed, you two are building something special. So proud. They talked about house hunting in the fancy Berkshires area, aiming for a place with 6 bedrooms and good schools for future kids, in the $2 to $3 million range. Everyone oohed and ahed. Mom glowed, saying Victoria would be the best mom ever. Aunt Beatrice asked about the wedding budget, $300,000 for something unique and magical. Dad was chipping in, Blake's parents too. I sat there, poking at my food, thinking about how that money could fund so many scholarships or help struggling families. But I kept quiet, watching it all like an outsider studying a strange ritual. Uncle Harold, trying to be nice, finally turned to me. "So, Elena, how's your work going?" The table went quiet, everyone looking at me with polite but bored interest, like they were waiting for a quick answer so they could move on. "It's going really well," I said simply. Dad asked if I was still programming. Mom said, "That's nice, honey," in that tone that meant, "Let's get back to the important stuff." Victoria laughed. "Elena's being modest, probably making cute little apps or something." Little apps? Chainmaster was handling billions in transactions across the globe. That's when I felt the words bubble up. Actually, things have changed a lot lately. Mom perked up a bit. "Oh, a promotion? Good for you." Victoria was already sipping her wine, looking bored. "Something like that," I said. "I sold my company." Confusion spread. Dad frowned. "What company? I thought you worked for someone." I took a deep breath and explained, "I started Chainmaster back in college. It's a supply chain software platform. I was the founder and CEO. We operated in 10 countries, and I sold it to Technova for $350 million. After everything, I kept $180 million. The shock wave hit hard. Forks clattered. Victoria gasped, "That's not possible. You're lying, you live simply, drive junk." I said, "I kept the old car for memories, but I have a Tesla too. And I just bought a $6 million house by the water, paid cash." She turned pale. "This is a joke." I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and showed the screen, $30 million just in my checking account, the rest invested. Aunt Beatrice screamed, "Oh my God, it's real." Mom grabbed the phone, staring like it was alien tech. "How? When did this happen?" I said calmly, "I've been building it for 8 years. You never asked because you were always talking about Victoria. I did it all alone, without your help or notice." Victoria slammed her hand down. "You tricked us into thinking you were struggling. I felt bad for you." I laughed without joy. "Did you? You never even thought about me." Blake quickly searched on his phone and confirmed, "It's true, articles everywhere. She's a top young tech entrepreneur. Photos of me at conferences, meeting governors." Mom started crying, mascara running. "Why hide it? We're family, we love you." My voice got sharp. "Do you? You forgot my birthday 3 years straight. Spent $250,000 on Victoria's college but nothing on mine. No stocking for me at Christmas because you forgot I was coming." Dad whispered, "That's not fair." I challenged them, "Name one thing about my life, my best friend, favorite food, anything from the last decade." Silence. Victoria's face turned red, tears flowing. "You're doing this to hurt me. Stealing my spotlight." I said, "Every moment's been yours for 28 years. I'm tired of being invisible." She yelled, "You're jealous." I shook my head. "No, I pity you. Everything was handed to you, school, jobs, opportunities. Dad pulled strings for your interview. You've never fought for anything, never proven yourself alone. Now you're marrying into comfort, it's fine, but not extraordinary." She lunged across the table, screaming bad words. Blake pulled her back. Aunt Beatrice fanned herself like she might faint. Mom sobbed into her napkin. The kids stared wide-eyed. Dad finally said, "Elena, I think you should go. I nodded, feeling exhausted but free. I grabbed my coat and bag. At the door, I turned. I didn't plan to ruin anything. I came to check if I still needed you to see me. I don't. I see myself now, and I'm proud of what I built alone. I drove off in my Tesla, the night air cool. My phone exploded with calls and texts, Victoria raging, Mom begging me to return, Dad lecturing about family. Aunt Beatrice even called, probably wanting money. I blocked them all, one by one, feeling a weight lift. 3 days later, Victoria's long email came, full of blame, but one line stood out: Mom thinks you stole from the family business for that house. I laughed in my new living room, the sound waves crashing outside. They couldn't accept that the okay kid had outshone them. A week after, their lawyer contacted mine, demanding $7 million for raising me. My lawyer fired back, no, and if they push, we'll sue for emotional neglect, with proof of how they favored Victoria. Records showed the huge gap in spending. They backed off quick. Christmas came, I spent it in Vail, skiing powdery slopes with tech friends who'd become like family. We laughed over hot cocoa, toasting our wins, my phone silent and peaceful. In January, Cousin Ethan texted from an unknown number, "Hey, things are weird with the family, but what you did was awesome. You inspired me to work hard and build my own thing. Thanks." I replied, "Thanks, Ethan. If you need advice, I'm here. Make something you're proud of." It felt good, like maybe some positive change came from the mess. Victoria's wedding happened in May. I saw gorgeous photos online. White dress, flowers everywhere, her dream come true. I felt nothing, no anger, no sadness, just neutral. 9 months ago, I launched my new company, AI Logics, focused on smart logistics with AI. I brought over top people from Chainmaster, and we're already getting big interest. This time, I'm not hiding, I'm on panels, giving speeches, mentoring young women in tech who feel overlooked. Last month, Yale invited me to speak at a conference. I almost said no, thinking of Victoria's time there and our parents' pride. But I went. My talk was about turning invisibility into strength, building success from scratch. The audience was glued, asking questions for an hour. Afterward, a nervous young woman approached, notebook in hand. "Hi, Miss Voss. I'm a first-generation student here on scholarship. My family thinks I should quit and get married back home. Your story makes me feel less alone." I hugged her. "You're not alone. You're going to do amazing things. Don't let anyone make you invisible." That moment hit me, this is better than any revenge. It's real purpose, helping others rise. My family still reaches out sometimes. Mom sends birthday cards now, which is weird because she remembers the date suddenly. Dad emails articles about tech, pretending he always cared. Victoria messaged last month about being pregnant, like I should care. I don't reply, not to be mean, but because my life is full without them. I have true friends who celebrate me, colleagues who value my ideas, and a future packed with exciting projects I've created. People ask if I regret the Thanksgiving blow-up, if I should have been nicer or kept quiet. Honestly? No. Maybe I could have been less dramatic, but that 9-year-old girl watching from the window, feeling worthless, deserved to finally speak up. The money's awesome, the success feels great, but the real treasure is seeing myself clearly, knowing my worth comes from within, not from them. And Dad? In the middle of all that chaos, Victoria's screams, Aunt's shrieks, Mom's tears, he just sat there silent, staring at his plate like it held all the answers. No words, no defense, no pride in me. Just a man realizing too late he'd bet everything on the wrong daughter, losing the one who could have made him truly proud. That silence spoke volumes, louder than any apology ever could.